So let us dive into Lightning Web Components Part 8 directly. So today we are going to have a look at three topics. First one is lifecycle hooks, custom events, and LMS, that is Lightning Message Service. So what is lifecycle and what are lifecycle hooks? So say whenever the component is inserted into the DOM, there starts our life cycle until it is removed from the DOM. So based on each event, each life cycle hook is actually um, it is actually it does its specific functions. Say for example, connected callback, rendered callback. Many of us use it in our components, right? So these are life cycle hooks. It is basically a JavaScript callback method at a specific phase. For example, when the component is inserted into the DOM, at that time it is triggered. So various different um, phases, at various different phases, each lifecycle hook is actually triggered. Actually our LWC is actually having different type of these life cycle hooks. So let us start with our life cycle hooks, that is from the beginning. First one is the constructor. So as we have it in our Apex classes, right? Like how we have constructors in Apex. Similarly, we have this constructor in LWC also. So first that constructor will be called. Now let us consider a scenario where we have parent component, and inside the parent component we have a child component. So this scenario we are considering, and we are taking this use case. So what happens when there are two components, parent and child? So first the constructor of this parent component is called. Later we already know what are public properties. These are at API. So first these public properties, if they are not updated, then they are going to get updated. That is the parent at API properties. Then once the parent is inserted into the DOM, connected callback is called. So once this connected callback is called, this component will be rendered multiple times. So each time this parent is rendered, then the child and usually inside a parent we will have multiple child components. So for each of these child components, again the same life cycle hook will repeat. Like this life cycle is going to repeat. First the constructor is called, then public properties, then child is going to get inserted into the DOM, then connected callback, and then child's rendered callback is called. Once child's render callback is finished, render callback is nothing but each time the child is rendered, this rendered callback is called. So after the child's rendered callback of the parent is called. So this is one life cycle hook. Then, so whenever the parent is removed from the DOM, disconnected callback from the parent is called. Then, when the child is removed from the DOM, disconnected callback is called on the child. So, this is about the life cycle hook. Basically, these are the methods which we use in our JavaScript when we are studying about these life cycle hooks. First is constructor. Say if we want to actually give some values for any variables or initialize something, then we can use constructor. Then connected callback. I forgot to mention about render is actually not a life cycle hook, we can say. So when there are multiple templates, let us take this scenario. Everyone would have seen sign up and login buttons. Whenever there is a new website which we are entering, we will usually sign up for that. If we are already signed up, then we log in. So to toggle between two templates. Say in our Lightning Web Component, we have JavaScript, HTML. So this HTML need not be one template. We can have multiple templates. So to toggle between multiple templates, we can use this render. Say for example, if a person has already signed up, then we can show him a login page. We are actually toggling between two say templates. Then again, as I told, rendered callback, whenever the component is rendered any number of times, each time this rendered callback will be called. So it is not a good practice um, to like to uh, to initialize any variables, or because this rendered callback keeps calling again and again. So it is best to avoid server calls, that is server call in the sense call to apex in this rendered callback. Error callback is when a particular HTML template is or this particular component is not rendered, then we call this error callback. Disconnected callback is usually we use this in LMS or PubSub, where we are actually unsubscribing from any particular message channel. So that is when we use this disconnected callback usually. Otherwise, we don't use it. So coming to custom events, we all know there are so many standard events like toast events, navigation mixing, and etc. So something similar to that, we have custom events. Now let us see what are the various scenarios we use this custom events. And there is also one bonus to this topic, that is usually this is also an interview question also, and in real time scenarios we use this very often. So say, let me use a diagram for the example. So whenever there is a parent component and we are passing the data to child component, we use public properties, that is at API. But what about when we have to pass the data from child component? Say we have a parent component and child component. In child component, say we have a button. On click of this button, we have to pass some data to parent component, from child to parent. How are we going to do it? We are going to use a custom event. So inside custom event, we can pass an object. So if we have multiple values to pass, we can combine all those values inside an object, and inside the event detail, we can actually pass that object, so that it will get passed to the data, whichever is in child component will get passed to the parent component. So this is a way of passing data from child to parent, that is using custom events. Now there comes one situation. Say for example, we have one parent component and two child components. Now we can call these two siblings. Since they are the child of the same parent, we can call these siblings. So there is an say there is an instance where we say, like, just imagine a parent component having two child components. In the child component 1, we are having a button. So on click of this button, we are passing some data to child component 2. How can we achieve this scenario? So basically, everyone will feel that we can use LMS, but LMS is not like suitable for this, because this these two child components are encapsulated within this parent component. So that is the reason there is no need to use LMS. There is one alternative way in which we can actually pass the data from child component 1 to child component 2 when it is having a common parent. So that is, first the data we have to pass child component 1's data from child to parent, and that data which is in parent, we have to pass it to child component 2. So how are we going to do it? So this is the method, but like with what are we going to do it? So first we are going to pass this data to parent component through custom event. And whenever the custom event is handled in the parent, what we are going to do, we are taking that data and we are calling this child components to public method or public function, and we are passing this data and updating a variable in child component 2. So from that we can pass this data from child component 1 via parent component to child component 2. So these are the two scenarios which we'll be talking about. So let us proceed with demo regarding the topics which I just mentioned right now. First, I would like to give the demo of how it is actually happening, and later I will explain the code. So this is the way I'm going to explain today. See, as I mentioned, so we are having this whole thing is a parent component, as we can see here. Let me just zoom. Okay. So this is our parent component. So now what we have is we have two child components. child component 1 and child component 2. What we are going to do here is, from child component 1 we are passing the data to child component 2. So for that, first we have to pass from child component 1 to parent component. So let's say I'm passing some message. So first it will be received here, and from here it will get updated to here. So this is the way it is happening. Now let me explain my code to you. And I'll be uploading this code, like this is some sample codes which I have written. I will be uploading it in GitHub later, and I will send it to Kathy, and she can upload it on LinkedIn. So first of all, I have a parent component here. I have named it as events demo, and in that events demo, I have two child components: events demo child 1 and events demo child 2. I have named this just for simplicity, but we usually don't use such naming conventions while we are writing code. This is just for simplicity. So in the event demo child 1, what are we having? So we are having a text box and a button, and in the child component 2 we are just having the text. We are just displaying a text, you can say output text, which is received from the parent component. So first, how we are going to take it is, first we have to build our parent component. So for that, first we have to build both of our child components. So first child component, we will be having text box and a button. It is very simple. So we can just copy these codes from component library. It is very simple to understand. Only the label and other things we have to change. Label and these handlers we have to change. So we are having lightning input here. We are taking text as the input. So this value, what we are doing, I'm so sorry about this. So this value, we are actually having a property here, reactive property. So this is variable to parent. So what we are doing, the whatever is present in this variable, it will be passed to parent. So I have named it as variable to parent. So what I am doing is, so on change of text, so I'm just capturing the value of this variable to parent, and on click of this button we have handle button event here. So each time so this value gets changed in the text, we are actually capturing the value, and on click of this button we are actually throwing a custom event, or we can say we are dispatching an event. In this event we are actually passing this variable to parent. This is a very simple variable which contains string, or you can say text. So I have just written this code, and next I have created events demo child 2. This is very simple text where we are having just a p tag, just to display what info we are getting from the parent. Nothing much. So we are writing a public function. So we have taken at API. So we need not make this at track also. It is fine without that. So info from parent. So this is just a variable which we have declared, and whatever info will come from parent, from child one, whatever we are passing to parent component, that will be received here. So this dot info from parent, we are actually passing whatever parameters we get from the parent. So now that these two components are ready, we can build our parent component. Parent component consists of child 1 and child 2. So on child 1 we have handled this custom event as on demo child. So we are just handling this data from child 1. Whatever we are firing from child 1 or dispatching that event, we are going to handle here. So how are we handling it? First thing, we are going to capture that in one variable from that is variable which whatever data we are receiving from child 1 we are storing in this variable, that is nothing but event dot detail. Let me show how this event dot how we get this event dot detail. So this is our parent. I have written on demo child. So let me copy this, and this on demo child is nothing but, say for example, if we use any normal like when we are capturing normal events, we write on click, on blur, like that. So this is on demo child, so this is our event name, so that we are going to copy and we are going to name it here. And how are we going to capture what data we are getting? So that is nothing but whatever is getting fired from the event dot detail. Detail is nothing but detail is storing this variable to parent. So if we just write event dot detail, whatever text we are sending from child 1 will get captured here. And how do we pass it to child 2? So we have this dot template dot query selector. What it does is, since we have this in this template we are having these two tags, so it will actually take whatever is in this tag. So it will select this one, this child, demo child, and it will call its method. So here we have the method refresh data from parent, that we are calling. And to this we are passing, to this method we are passing this dot variable from child 1. Here we are passing it. So what happens when this is received here, it will get updated in this variable, in this reactive variable it will get updated. So it will get displayed here, receive data from parent. So let me show how this is working with debugger. First is child 1. So whenever we want to understand how the flow is actually happening, we can use debuggers. First thing, so when each changes are happening, so we want to get to know what change we have in the text. Then after that, so we are adding debugger everywhere. Even here we would like to add debugger. Okay. So how do we use this debugger? First of all, we have to enable debug mode. So from settings, we can actually enable debug mode from setup here. If we go and search in the quick find, we can enable debug mode for any given user. So I have already enabled debug mode, and now I will control. I think it is I'll just click on inspect. Right click and click on inspect. It is control shift and I. Uh, then once we do that, we can just clear everything which is there in console. So what I will do, I will enter word by word H. So once we enter something, it will go to handle change event. So what we can do, we can just copy something. So what is there in variable to parent? Hello is stored. Okay. Then after once we click this message, it is coming to this handle button event. There one custom event is created. So in this event, from this event, it is getting passed to parent component, handle data from child one. We can see the event here. Then from here, it is going to the second component, the second child component, where this refresh data from parent is called. So finally, in the second component, we are getting it as hello here. And we are coming back to parent component. As we saw in the life cycle hooks, right? From child, we'll come back to parent. So this is about the custom events. Now let us dive into LMS, Lightning Message Service. So Lightning Message Service is a part of product. It it actually, so when we want to pass data from VF page or ILWC, when we interlink it, or we can say cross component communication, it is useful in that. Also, there is one scenario where we can use it in Lightning Web Components, that is when two components are not related. Say, for example, in our earlier scenario, our parent component was encapsulating these two child components. But in this scenario, in current scenario, what if there are two components and two components are not related to each other? So in that case, we will use Lightning Message Service. So to use Lightning Message Service, we are using something called as Lightning Message Channel. Channel is nothing but it is an intermediary to pass data from one component to another. You can say channel, or you can say an interface. So this is also a part of package.xml. So what we can do, we can directly retrieve and deploy using VS Code. We can build it as a package as Lightning Message Channel. So this is basically the advantages also of LMS. That is, we can do cross component communication, and also we can communicate between two unrelated components. Now let us see some scenarios where we can use LMS. So first is what I told, cross component communication, and also communication between two Lightning Web Components where both the components are not related. Uh, so, and also I would like to give some real time scenarios. These are the two which I have added here, but I have many more to explain. If we go to sample gallery in Trailhead, we can find many examples like e-bikes. In e-bikes, they have created some filters like search filters, advanced search filters. With those components are not related. That is, search bar and the left side filter bar are not related, but their LMS or PubSub is used. So we can use PubSub, but it is always better to use LMS than to use PubSub, since PubSub is applicable only for that particular tab, whichever is open, but LMS is for other tabs as well. So it is better to use LMS. So, for example, I can say some real-time scenarios which you guys can work on. So, consider we have data table on the left pane or right pane of our Lightning app. So, what happens? We can have all the list of accounts or contacts, and when we click on each account, we can edit and view that particular account in the same page without refreshing the page. So, this is one scenario. And sometimes we have complex components like data tree. For example, I can say we have to display accounts with contacts and opportunities. So on click of each contact or opportunity for that account, in the same page we can edit and we can view. Sometimes we can also apply delete also for that. So these are some scenarios, and some other scenarios are when we have to apply multiple filters. We can go and see, like when we are doing product search in Amazon, Flipkart, there are so many search options, like advanced search options, like based on there are so many check boxes for price range. There are say progress bars to choose price range, and there are so many pick list values which we can choose from. There are say which we can choose brands, and later we can filter. So such complex or advanced search scenarios can be accomplished by using this LMS. um, but I would say it is always um, better to communicate between two components without LMS. That is my suggestion. So now I have created this simple component. Here I have listed some accounts, maybe say 10 accounts. On click of each account, I will be able to view that account, and on click of this edit, I will be able to edit that account in the same page. So I'm not going to click and I'm not going to refresh this page. Without refreshing, I will be able to edit and view. So let's say I'm clicking on Edge Communications. I'm able to view all this without refresh of this page, and on click of edit, I will be able to edit. So it is I'm able to edit this now. So similarly, so what is happening here is this is a component, separate component. This is a lightning record view form, sorry, lightning record edit form which I have used, and this is a lightning data table. What I'm doing, I'm actually querying some accounts, say 10 accounts. This is for the sake of demo. So, and I'm making this as button clickable. That is, I'm applying row actions on this. So I'm taking the record ID of this particular say account, and I'm passing this record ID from this component to this component. That is where we'll be using our lightning message channel. So so this will act as publisher, and this will act as subscriber. So we can say LMS is somewhat similar to that of application events in Aura components, but application events is only applicable for Aura components, but LMS is applicable for VF Pages, Aura, and LWC. So that is the advantages of using this Lightning message service. So how we have accomplished this? Let us see that now. Firstly, we have to create a Lightning message channel for that. So I have created this Lightning message channel. So what I'm passing here is account record ID. So I have named this message fields as account record ID. So these are particularly variables, we can say. So inside an object, like we have multiple variables, we can consider it somewhat that way. Say for example, there is one object. In that object, we are having multiple fields. Say like name, description, like that. So we are having account record ID as one of our field for this account record message channel. And why we are using this master label? It is just to get to know that this is giving this particular channel a label, and we are giving description just to make sure for others to understand why we are using this, for what purpose we are using this. It is always good to add description whenever we create fields or objects. So when we are using this, we have to first import it in our um, publisher and subscriber. So let us see how we can do that. So before going to that, so what we have to do for creating this message channel is, first we have to create a folder called message channel in a default folder. Inside that folder we have to create this message channel, and inside that we can create this message channel meta.xml with any name. So this is nothing but an XML file which is having all the field names where we'll be passing the data. So right now we require only one field, that is nothing but record ID. So there are two components basically. So the left one is nothing but record edit form, the right one is data table. Why I have chosen this scenario is, usually in our projects we always use edit forms and data tables. Also sometimes we use tree grids, so that is the reason behind me taking this example. So this is about lightning message channel, and one good thing about this lightning message channel is it is packageable. That is, we can include this in our package.xml for retrieving and deployment purposes. So let us go to our first component, that is account uh, record edit form. As you would have known about record edit form, so we don't have to write any Apex code to save any record by using this record edit form. Here I have added 7 fields: name, industry, phone, website type, annual revenue, and ownership. What I have done, I have taken this record ID dynamically, so that from lightning message channel I will pass this record ID. So to lightning message channel I am passing it from the data table component. So I have taken, one is view form and one is edit form. So when we click on edit here, it will actually show all the edit fields, or we can say input fields. So it is just like a toggle. We can say I have just added an if condition. So this edit will be shown when the button is clicked, and when it is saved it will go back to view form. So this is a simple logic. I have used this if false and if true to accomplish this logic, and I have added edit button here, and also I have added a submit button. So this is a basic lightning edit form. Later we have one more component, that is get account list. So what we are doing here is, I'm just querying 10 accounts in the Apex, and I'm calling that Apex class from here using at wire to get the accounts data, and I'm adding the columns. So if we go to lightning component library and search for data table, this code will be available. So I'm just doing some enhancements on that code, that basic code. So I'm making show data table equal to false in the beginning. So once it's loaded, I'm making show data table to true. And coming to the message, lightning message channel. So first what we have to do, we have to import. So first we have to be clear about what we are, from where we are publishing and from where we are subscribing. So subscriber is the one which is going to get the data from the publisher. So publisher is going to publish some data to the recipient or subscriber, and the medium for this is lightning message channel. So what we are doing here is, first we are importing this. So our data table component acts as publisher. So we are importing publish and message context from lightning message service, and we are adding at wire here. We are wiring to our message context. Then what we are doing, So coming to our message channel, that is account record message channel. So as I told, it is like object and fields. So we are actually appending underscore underscore c to this one, to this message channel. So we are naming it as record selected because we are passing the record selected to this particular message channel. So we have named it so. What we are doing on handle row action. Handle row action is nothing but on click of each of these rows. That is handle row action. So on click of each of these, we are actually getting this account record ID, that is row.id, and we are passing that as a object. As I have already mentioned, that it will act as objects and fields. So we have to pass it in the form of object. We have to create an empty object. Inside that we can add record ID. This dot record ID. And also it is very important to keep in mind about these variable names. Here I have named it as account record ID. Here I have named it as record ID. So what is going to happen once this record ID gets stored here? This will be packaged. So objects and fields are nothing but it will be like a package and it will go to the subscriber org. Now let us see the code in the subscriber org. What is happening? So here also we have to import subscribe, unsubscribe, scope of this application and message context. Like how we had imported publish from here from our data table component. Similarly, we have to import subscribe and unsubscribe. And again, we are going to import our message channel, that is account record underscore c underscore underscore c. So first thing what we are going to do is subscribe to this message channel. So we are going to write logics for subscribe and unsubscribe. So we are going to write that in different methods, that is two different methods. So we have a boolean variable here, that is subscription. So once the subscription is not true, we are entering inside this subscribe. So once it is already subscribed, no need to subscribe again, right? So we are checking this condition. So what we are going to do is subscribe to this message context of this particular message channel. So nothing but this context of this channel, and we are passing the message here. So this message is nothing but the object which we had sent from our data table component, and scope is nothing but our current application scope which we have imported here. So this is for subscribe. To unsubscribe, what we can do is, so we can make this dot subscription to null, so it will get unsubscribed. So there are two instances now. Once our component is uh, say added to the DOM, at that time we are actually subscribing to that message channel. Nothing but we have to call this particular subscribe to message channel method in our connected callback. Since on adding this component to the DOM itself, we are subscribing to that. We should never use rendered callback here because it will be called multiple times, and it is always best to subscribe to the message channel once it is immediately added to the DOM. And on disconnected callback, that is when our component is removed from the DOM, we are calling unsubscribe. That is, we don't want, we want to just unsubscribe to this particular say for example, let us take this when the person is not at home, we don't want him to receive any mails or any posts. That is somewhat similar to that. We just don't want to waste our memory or anything, so we are just unsubscribing to it. So it is always best to subscribe and unsubscribe during connected callback and disconnected callback. Also, we can have various other scenarios. Once the criteria is satisfied, we can just unsubscribe. Say after some calculations, we want to just stop subscribing. In that criteria, in that situation also, we can just stop subscribing, and we can call this method. And what we are doing is this dot record id is equal to message dot record id. So in our message channel we have added it as account record id. So what we will be doing, in to that we are sending the message as record id from the data table component. So this is nothing but message. So this object will be considered as message. That message dot record id, we will be storing it in some variable here called record id. I have declared a variable here, and in that variable I am storing it. So based on this record id, it will get passed to the record id parameter here, to the lightning record edit form. So let me show this in action. I will add debugger to each and every part of the code so that you can understand better. So it is always better to add debugger for the sake of understanding. So when this component is rendered, we have got 10 rows to display. So let me show what all data we are receiving from the Apex. So this is our data which we have received from Apex. So IDs are hidden because we don't want to show IDs because it is related to each of the record, and IDs does not make sense to user, so we are not just displaying it. It is used as we can say unique identity. When we pass it from data table component to the other component, it will actually fetch the record from lightning record edit form. So once the data is fetched, now coming back to this one, we are clicking on one particular record. So what is going to happen is, so this row is going to have the entire detail of that row. So this is it. So we can get the ID, and also we can get the name. So it is containing all the information. This row is containing ID, name, industry, and phone. So right now we don't need any other information because this acts as a primary key. So what we are requiring, only row.id. We are storing that in account record ID, and here we are creating object, that is JavaScript object, and we are passing it to the message channel. We are passing it through the message channel. Now from here, from this say component, it has moved to this component. I think let me show that again. So we are in get account list component now, still there. So once this gets published, we are in account edit form, view edit form component now. Now this handle message is called, and this dot record id, this from message object, this record id, this field is taken, and so we get this dot record id as this particular value, and as we know it gets rendered after that. So this gets rendered. Similarly, if we click on others, it will also get rendered. So that is about today's demo. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Siri, thank you for such an insightful session. We do have a few questions for you. Uh, if two components are not relatable, means do we use pub/sub model, and in which scenario we can use LMS?
Right now, it is always advisable to use LMS itself because it is part of the product, and we don't have to take the burden of testing and everything. So it is better to use LMS as per recent releases.
Do we have application event in LWC?
No, we don't have, but we have application event in Aura. So this elements acts somewhat similar to this application event which is present in Aura. But application event in Aura is only specific to Aura components. We cannot use it in any other components. But LMSs we can use it in Aura, LWC, Visual Force pages, and everything. So it is a game changer.
Okay, thank you again, Siri, for such an insightful session. Thank you all for joining.